Bhatia, please, it's over there for official inauguration.
He's also associate with the Asian Heart Institute. Apart from his medical practice, he's an honorary assistant professor at GMC, teaching undergrad and postgrad students of medicine. He has many papers and publications to his name in national and international journals, and has participated in numerous.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Rajiv, and the organizers for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to say a few words to start this Congress, which is, I'm sure, going to help you next 2 days in bettering your existing knowledge. That's the idea of this Congress, and many practical tips. As a chair of Southeast Asia, it's always my responsibility to tell for what we have taken this task and what are the issues that we are basically concerned and what we try to do ourselves today to improve the life of diabetics. So let's first identify diabetes is a global emergency. You all know, I think this slide has been shown to again. In 2015, there are 4.1 million. In 2040, there are 642 million in the world. It's not new to Southeast Asia. We knew, Egyptians knew. But in Southeast Asia region, it has a peculiar problem. It's the second most populous region of IDF. Please remember that, the International Diabetic Federation. When you take China out, in urbanization and consequent changes in the diet and physical activity. However, the populations of Southeast Asia have the misfortune to be more genetically susceptible. Ethnically, we are more susceptible to develop complications of diabetes. And the environmental factors which are changing very rapidly from a very simple lifestyle and a very simplistic way of spending your money. And I'm going to be very sure that with this demonetization, maybe the chances that we'll start living a better life. We'll not spend so much money, we'll not eat all rubbish, which unfortunately has gone with the progress of the country. India is the home of the second largest number of adults living with diabetes worldwide, 69.2 million. Now, what are the unmet needs in diabetes management in India? What is the main problem? Lack of adherence and patient issues, lack of early treatment and intensification, and a good glycemic control, lack of awareness. You'll be surprised. There are at least 30% of this population in this country, most difficult language to talk. Unfortunately, all material, all education material is highly complex and confusing. And when associations meet, please remember, whenever there are associations who meet and take out fatwas, the life of diabetic as well as diabetologist become more miserable. We don't know what to follow. Then people write guidelines. Please remember, medical advice is expensive in most patients with diabetes in India. Insurance cover is not there. Lack of early treatment, intensification and good glycemic control has helped. The timely initiation and proper use of existing therapies. The clinical inertia, recognition of problem but failure to act. You know the HbA1c is 8, we must reduce it, but we cannot act. Various reasons. It is known that insulin is not initiated in patients till the HbA1c reaches 9. We should start insulin when the HbA1c is 7. The local interpretation of guidelines to manage type 2 diabetes and making suitable to the local socio-economic and cultural sensitivity is important. We must understand the local culture. Therefore, somebody came to me, he said, "Sir, I want an attachment to your hospital." I say, "What is it? Are you a diploma diabetic or are you like all these boys who are there? I'll appoint you tomorrow." He said, "No, I have passed from cardio." I say, "This is my car, he will drop me at the airport. I don't need you." You try to understand, I don't need a foreign trained person. I need a local guy. I need a guy who knows the culture. I need a guy who knows the habits of the people. I know the guy, what the people are in this city doing. That is why we have to train. This could be a consequence of current lifestyle. We must change the lifestyle. As per cure, a substantial percentage of patients are unaware of diabetes condition. Almost 25%, they are not knowing. They come to light when they come pre-operative, pre-employment. Further, almost half of the patients are unaware that a good glycemic control would help to avoid complications. A lack of trained diabetes educator in India leaves a burden of educating patient to physician. Now that is very, very difficult. We have physicians who see more than 200 patients a day. I know some physicians who have told me, "आम्ही फक्त systolic blood pressure check करतो. आम्हाला वेळ नसतो." Unfortunately, lack of time to good people. So we need the specialty of diabetes educator, and that is what we are going to do that. A lack of screening is an iceberg in India. The number of diabetics that you see is the tip of the iceberg, while the base is still undiagnosed, and that's the most treacherous thing. Many times the patient comes to us with the coronary artery disease. Management of coronary artery disease become very complex, and it found that it's not a known diabetic, but at the time of admission his HbA1c is 9. So you understand the patient comes for complications of a disease at a young age, and that is what we want to prevent. Early diagnosis and regular screening, which is very important. Nearly half people with diabetes remain undertreated, undetected. HbA1c testing is nearly absent at government centers and insignificant in private centers. The HbA1c should be available more. Identifying the accurate and low-cost method is necessary first step in assessing the cost-effectiveness of the screening of to detect undiagnosed diabetes. We have to find out some methodology. We have to train the IIT students. Some of the IIT students have come out with a strict cost of 20 paise. They are coming out. Or HbA1c cost less than 50 paise. And that becomes marketing easily available. I'm sure we are here with a big A. Indian Diabetes Risk Scores, MDRF, IDRS suggested a cost-effective approach for screening all patients around less than 35 to 49, score is 20, more than 50 is 30. Abdominal obesity, one single marker. If you just check the waist circumference, that tells you a clue. Anything more than 90 and 100 in males is a 20. And any score which is more than 50 is a high risk of having diabetes. Which guideline for Southeast Asia and India? Standards of medical care, diabetes care. ACE comprehensive type 2 diabetes management algorithm. And NICE, National Institute of Health and Care Excellence type 2 diabetes in adults management. Socio-cultural factors and lack of regional specific guidelines. Unfortunately, we don't have a regional specific guidelines. And one should come out with those. Socio-cultural responsible Indian national guidelines must be evolved to address these themes. Now we have filled this gap, RSCGI clinical practice recommendation and a proposed India-specific algorithm for management of type 2 diabetes, which will be available easily for all of you. Burden of macrovascular complicated diabetes is very big. Coronary artery disease particularly, there is not a single bed available in ICU in Bombay. The burden of diabetes increases due to associated micro. It's a vascular disease. India has the highest number of people with diabetes and cardiovascular disease, and therefore one should make a burden of diabetes complication affects productive younger age group in developing countries, having serious economic implications. So tackling diabetes is not easy, and we have some stalwarts sitting here, and they will guide you in the subsequent lectures. It may be true that diabetes is an incurable disease. However, it is largely preventable and can be detected early and controlled. We need a comprehensive framework to make our burden and societies less diabetogenic, screening system more patient-friendly, and behavior changes, interventions more powerful and sustainable right from school. In fact, I have given a plan as a Southeast Asia region to the health minister as well as education minister to include the syllabus on diabetes in school education. Healthcare system more effective to control diabetes and its complications. Now obviously, to treat diabetes will be a pivotal to achieve a global sustainable development goal targets. The whole society has a role to play, including the healthcare, social workers, teachers, and by working together in Southeast Asia, we can halt diabetes. So ladies and gentlemen, this is my Man Ki Baat, which is a job that I have to do for the next 2 years, and maybe I'll continue doing it. And maybe I've been doing all this, that's why probably I've been put in this position. But ultimately, you are the main people, you're the pillars, you're the ones who are going to implement it in the society. And I'm sure at the end of the day, when you will learn so many new things from my friends, you'll be probably able to achieve this at your local level. Thank you very much for your patient hearing. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Dr. I'd like to now call Dr. Rajiv Koval, a consultant diabetologist at Koval's Diabetes Care Center, and Holy Spirit, Arogyanathi.
Because spondylosis risk, because I'd have to look there and then talk. Thank you, UBM Medica. Honored to be here with my teacher, Dr. Anand Boraskar. Learned a lot of things, also tasting malt, the right malt from him apart from diabetes. My talk is on parental options to advance insulin therapy, basal insulin. Basically, who should marry basal insulin once it's divorced? So that's the basic question, whether we should add insulin to it or whether we should add a prandial GLP-1 receptor analog. This is Monier's data, which told us the relative contribution of fasting and postprandial to HbA1c. Today we know that HbA1c is a surrogate marker for glycemic control. And when the blood sugar is very high, when the A1c is more than 10, fasting hyperglycemia contributes a lot, almost 75% to the HbA1c. And when it comes below 8.5 and closer to 7, the postprandial hyperglycemia contributes almost 75%. So if we kind of extrapolate that to clinical practice, if you have a patient who has a very high HbA1c, suppose 11, 10, and you want to get him down to 8.59, you just target or fix his fasting, you'll get him down to 8.59. Now beyond 8.59, you want to get him down to a 6.5 and 7, you need some prandial regulators. Whether it's a short-acting insulin, whether it's a GLP-1, whether it's a DPP-4, whether it's metformin, whether it's alpha-glucosidase inhibitor. So from 8.5 to 7 or 6.5, without a prandial regulator, the experience is very, very difficult. So you will have fasting coming under control, and then that's the most important takeaway from the Monier data. So fix fasting first. FFF, this was a terminology from JAPI around 5 years back. So once we have fixed the fasting, then we look at the postprandials, and then we look at preprandial and postprandial to decide what is the next step. Many other, there's a lot of clinical development program in 50 countries, 900 sites, 6,000 patients, and right from Get Gold to Get Gold Duo, which is the biggest study which they have, and basal insulin compared with prandial insulins, and also head-on with another GLP-1. So there are a lot of studies which are designed in such a way that you can kind of extrapolate it to a clinical strategy to be done. Lixisenatide is the most studied GLP-1 agonist in combination with basal insulin. There, if you look the number of patients, there are more than 2,000 patients who have been in a combination with basal insulin. That's probably the right place where probably the drug or the injectable drug would work, where you add on, where you fix the fasting and HbA1c is higher, postprandial is higher, look at adding a GLP-1RA, and that can reduce the postprandial hyperglycemia. Some head-on trials versus comparators on background of insulin. This is GET-GOAL Asia study, which is comparing glucosine addition on a background of metformin versus lixisenatide. Here you have glucosine once a day versus lixisenatide once a day versus glucosine 3 times a day on a basal therapy of glargine. And so basically you're comparing whether it's better to add on a GLP-1RA to basal insulin failure, or add on a basal plus strategy of 1 insulin, or a basal bolus strategy of 3 times insulin. 2 years back at the ADA there was a study called as fat sugar, which again compared the same strategy, and they also looked at inflammatory markers with the same HbA1c, the glycemic excursion, or the mean amplitude of glycemic excursion, or what we call today as glycemic variability, was much lesser when you use a GLP-1 plus a basal insulin as compared to a prandial insulin plus basal insulin. And the inflammatory markers are much lesser when you use a GLP-1 plus basal insulin. And this is the hypothesis which could kind of explain a lot of complications which are still not explained because of HbA1c. So glycemic variability could be very well reduced, which could really reduce the kind of inflammatory markers. And this study tells us that, whether you use insulin glargine plus glucosine once a day, or insulin glargine plus glucosine thrice a day, or insulin glargine plus lixisenatide once a day at a fixed dose, the HbA1c reduction is almost comparable. It's almost very similar. And this is a 24-week study. But in terms of body weight, adding a GLP-1 receptor analog is far superior to adding any insulin. And it's one dose, fix the dose and give the dose, rather than titrating prandial insulins, which you need a pre-meal and a post-meal, and a lot of titration algorithms to be followed. Again, hypoglycemia is much lesser because obviously there's no insulin and you're adding GLP-1, which is obviously an insulinotropic drug. This is a head-on study of lixisenatide versus liraglutide on a background of basal insulin. And again, it's a forced titration where you are adding on liraglutide, as we do in clinical practice, 0.6 to 1.2 in the second week and 1.8 in the third week. And lixisenatide at 10 microgram and 20 microgram on the second week. And what you can see is that the primary endpoint here we looked at postprandial glucose, and again postprandial glucose was much better reduced with lixisenatide as compared to liraglutide, which is pretty well established because it's a shorter acting GLP-1, has more effect on gastric emptying. Liraglutide is much longer and has lesser effect on postprandial hyperglycemia. Lower risk of GI side effects. So in spite of being a shorter acting GLP-1 with effect on gastric emptying, the side effects of GI, of nausea and vomiting, are not more pronounced of a shorter acting prandial GLP-1 as compared to a longer acting GLP-1. Effect on weight and HbA1c, the weight gain was slightly better with liraglutide as compared to lixisenatide. HbA1c was fairly similar whether you used 0.6, 1.2, 1.8 or 20 micrograms of lixisenatide. The change in HbA1c, as you can see, is very similar. Lixisenatide added to insulin at 24 weeks, the HbA1c very similar. More patients reaching an HbA1c target below 7 when we add on lixisenatide to basal insulin failure. Postprandial hyperglycemia much lesser. In terms of GI side effects, serious GI events are very less. No pancreatitis, 10 to 15% of nausea and vomiting, which is seen in most of the GLP-1 studies, and no reported pancreatic cancer or pancreatitis. Lixisenatide was one of the first GLP-1 RAs to come up with a CVOT, which came in 2014. Alexa, somehow Sanofi did not promote it then because probably they were skeptical of getting it to India. But one of the first studies that came out with because on the same day. Alexa was a study which was done in high-risk patients who had an established ACS within 180 days of an ACS, and they were randomized to either lixisenatide or standard therapy and were followed for approximately 25 months and approximately 6,000 patients, and 6,000 patients with long duration of diabetes, duration of approximately 9.3 years. Again, it satisfied the 95% confidence interval for non-inferiority on all the 4-point maze and individually also on all the 4-point maze. So basically, lixisenatide in a large CV outcome study has established non-inferiority and we can safely use it in patients without any signal towards cardiovascular toxicity. Similar linearity with hospitalization for heart failure. So in terms of combination of a basal insulin plus a GLP-1 RA, insulin glargine has sort of gone through a large outcome study called Origin, which was done in early diabetes or pre-diabetes. And again, it did not, this was done because a few years back there were some reports of cancer with glargine which were completely, which had put cobwebs in our mind. But now with the Origin study which came out almost 4 years back, there was no difference versus standard of care. It's fairly established that insulin glargine is a safe molecule, and same with the Alexa study with lixisenatide. It's fairly established that it's a safe molecule to be used. So the combination of a GLP-1 RA plus basal insulin in terms of glargine plus lixisenatide seems to be a very safe molecule with no signal towards cardiovascular toxicity. So lixisenatide plays among other GLP-1 RAs is that it's the
Start shooting, fatafat. I have no time. Okay. Yeah, good evening, my friends. Is this is the light on or what's happening?
They're recording.
Okay, it's on. Is it? Okay. I'm very happy.